How you actually became a VC in blockchain? Because you're known to be one of the first VCs to start investing in the blockchain space. What caught your attention? Why did you want to do it?
Well, I was talking to a guy from Korea who he was a billionaire, and he said, and this was back, 2004, and he said that all of Korea is big on this game Lineage. I think it's called Lineage. And that his son wanted a sword for his birthday. And I said, what do you mean a sword? And he said, a sword, it'll be a picture of a sword on the screen, and he can use it in the game. And I said, oh, so people are paying real money for virtual goods. And that was the beginning of my thinking that you could do virtual money. And then over time, I was watching for when a game could create virtual money that could be transferred to another game. And I started to think that might end up being something big, because then you start building a real marketplace. And then when I first saw Bitcoin, I thought, this is the best thing ever. We're going to have one, and everybody's going to use it, and it's going to go from the virtual world to the real world. Fantastic. And then, so I bought some, and it was at $6 a Bitcoin then, and then it was stolen in the Mt. Gox thing, and I thought, oh, too bad. That was really going to be something. The world was going to be much wealthier for it. Everything was going to be great, but now that's gone, because the biggest exchange just stole a bunch of money. So I thought it was over, and Bitcoin that day just dropped about 10%. It hardly even affected the price. And I thought, oh my gosh, people really need this. People need Bitcoin. There are all the unbanked people out there that don't have any way to participate in the world economy. They're going to need it. People want to store value in a safe way without any hindrance from outside. They're going to want it. And so I thought, and it's an easier thing to move. You can have your Bitcoin and store it in California, and then come to Kazakhstan and pull it down and pay for something. It's a truly global currency. And I thought that's a big leap from what it was, what currency was before. It's a real advance. And so I got excited about it, and I got going on it. And then I knew there would be competitors to Bitcoin. And, of course, Ethereum focused on smart contracts, and Ripple focused on banks. And so I saw, oh, these are going to be interesting too. And then we backed Tezos and Bancor because they had really good, strong philosophies behind them. Blockchain companies have a long way to go. First, we backed wallets in about 15 different countries. We backed companies that could transfer Bitcoin from one phone to another. We backed a company that was going to use blockchain and build applications for various companies that would fit their needs. We funded quite a few different companies, and we're very optimistic. Haven't lost very many of them, and most of them are growing pretty well. So I think we're going to do very well on our blockchain investments. It always does take a much longer time to make a big transference from one mode of operating to another. I still like reading a paper book or a paper newspaper, but almost all of my information comes from my my phone and my iPad. It's a new form of bank. It's a bank that has a trusted third party that doesn't require people or a building, doesn't require all that overhead. And so when we make transfers of money, we don't have to pay as large a percentage to what would be a bank. I suspect that there will be some banks that make the conversion to where they do fiat currencies and cryptocurrencies. There will be some that don't, and they will slowly watch as their market share erodes, just as paper magazines have. And then, of course, there will be the innovators, there will be the Coinbases that become the banks of the future. And I'm excited about that, watching that all happen. And it won't just be the currencies that get transformed. You're going to see all sorts of industries feeling that kind of a change. This is an amazing time. It's about time that somebody came and disrupted the VC business and the investment banking business. The service we provide is not justified. The only reason that you have to use an investment bank is because of all those regulations that were created to support those investment banks. The venture capitalists have always been a bottleneck to getting money to the entrepreneur. I think it's great that there's something that makes it so you can get money directly to the entrepreneur without having some intermediary getting in the way, like me. I think that this is one of those really interesting times, and the countries that are banning the ICOs are going to lose out big, because the ICO market is going to be enormous. And the countries that are accepting ICOs are going to benefit in a big way. They're going to get all the entrepreneurs, they're going to get all the ICOs. All that money is going to run through their country instead of the countries that are banning the ICOs. This is just, you're going to see a whole shift in where the wealth is in the world because of this new ICO world. I've had two extraordinary ICOs, both Bancor and Tezos, are over $100 million raised, and they're worth, together almost $1 billion. They have a problem. They got so much money that it doesn't cash flow the way you need it for a startup. A startup at the beginning needs no more than $1 million or $2 million a year to keep going until the market hits, and then you need to spend a lot of money on the market. But as you're developing a product, you shouldn't have more than 5 or, no more than 20 people in your company. And so keeping that, holding on to this big pile of money, knowing that you only really should be spending this small stream of capital, creates a big problem. What to do with all of the extra money? How do you invest it? How do you build it? We've come up with the thinking that you use it as a war chest that promises that coin will be around forever. And you use it to help market the coin by having people design new software that goes on top of that coin. So I think it is a big issue, because with venture capital, you know that you're getting about the right amount of money for the stage of investment you're at, stage of venture you're building. The ICO is different from that, and it's only one time. So they have to really be educated. They have to learn to how best to manage money before they do an ICO. When you buy into an ICO, you're not buying in a piece of the company. That's where it's different from venture capital. Venture capital, you're buying ownership in a company. You buy an ICO, you're buying a coin. It's as though you're buying gold or euros or some other form of currency. It is a very different animal. But what's great about that is that it is different, and for entrepreneurs, it creates a new palette, a new canvas for creativity. So they can create new sociological transformations through this vehicle called the ICO. Whereas generally people were kind of stuck thinking that they had to operate as a corporation or as a nonprofit or an NGO. Well, now there's a new thing. You can operate as an ICO. You can create a coin that creates a movement. And sure, there are people out there saying, hey, I couldn't raise money from venture capitalists for my medical device. Here, now I'm going to do an ICO and I'll be able to raise it. Well, that isn't the spirit of the ICO. That's just sort of like, hey, let me get money anywhere I can. And that you've got to give it to the entrepreneur, give credit to the entrepreneur. They're going to figure out what's the best way for them to get money, but they should also know, and the investor should know, that when they're selling and the investor is buying an ICO, they're buying a coin. They're not buying ownership in a business, and that should be made very clear. So I think it's education, not regulation. I'll tell you what regulations do. They keep the status quo. They keep people at this certain protected level. Well, think about this. If you have 7 euros and you want to set up a bank account, you can't. The bank won't take it because it costs them 200 euros just for the regulations to take your account, to set up your account. So what that does is it keeps anybody who has less than the 200 euros out of the entire world economy. So that's that unbanked population. Well, the ICO's Bitcoin allows those people to participate in this world economy. Who are we protecting? Are we protecting all of those poor people who are left out of the world economy? Or are we protecting some status quo that's like the way we've always done it? I actually believe that education more than regulation. You educate everyone, then it's buyer beware. If you don't want to, if you think it's a little dicey, don't invest. No, it's not even called investing. Don't buy that ICO. If a mining company creates a new coin, that coin needs to have its own world, its own life. And it has to be something that will spread, and it has to be something that it feels like a movement. It feels like it's almost like a token or a coin is like a political movement where people get behind it because they believe in that. So the mining company would have to show the community that this is a movement that really matters. And the coin will have to have a purpose after the initial. You have to complete the cycle to create the economy that you need to have a token. Every token that's successful will have a full economy where people will have the initial coin offering and they'll buy them, but then the coins have to have a real use in the marketplace, in a free marketplace, other than just being tradable for some ethereal other coin. The government was trying to control it and keep it in their borders. And they realize that it's the same as a fiat currency because it's not transferable and it doesn't move across borders. And it's not that good a store of value because if something happens to that government, then you're left with something that's worthless. So it doesn't make as much sense because most of these cryptocurrencies are global and it matters that they're global and they should be global. Estonia did have the idea of using virtual residency, and so there will be people who are residents of Estonia who are outside of Estonia, and that could become like a competitive governance thing where people say, well, I want to be a virtual resident of Estonia or Kazakhstan or America. I want to be virtual. Then we're global again. Then you do have a coin that matters, but the coin has to be tradable outside of the country. Currently, fiat currency has much more friction than a cryptocurrency, and so you could take the ruble or the dollar or the euro or whatever and make it crypto and have it move quicker from one place to another. And that could be a valuable service that a government could provide. But I think the government really needs to take advantage of the blockchain because the blockchain is fair, uncorruptible, honest, it's cheap, easy to pay for, and it can monitor all of the people. It can keep track of identity. It can do the voting. It can manage the health care. It can do all these things in a way that is secure and distributed and fair. And that's kind of what you're looking for from a government.